Hello and welcome to Comics Magic, the place for independent comic creators to learn about making comics and selling their own comic books. Today I have a great special guest, Travis Gibb. Travis, I know that you are not only an independent comic book creator, but you're a big advocate for comic book creators. But I do want to learn more about your history. But before we do that, I want to share that I found you originally on Kickstarter. I had pledged for State Punk through your publishing company, Orange Cone, right?
Orange Cone, yep.
And imagine that I couldn't find one comic book out of my boxes. But what I did find is when I did meet with you at a MegaCon a few years ago, I found one of the Green State Punk metal sheets from an offset printing that you signed for me. So that's one. It's the only plate I have. So thank you.
Yeah, and that's the best plate. That one right there. No, seriously, that's the page that I think is the most important. I think it's the best page of the book. That's the one plate because I think we have that plate. Me and my wife have that plate, just a different color, because I have the four. But
yep.
Yeah, that's the one. Every friggin' day is the same. It's so good.
Yeah, and I did love that story. And you know, I'm a psychiatrist, so I know a lot about psychiatry, psychology, and there was a lot going on in the psyche there. So really cool story.
I think so. We just wrapped it up. So late pledges are live right now. So we just put up the last issue. And as a psychologist point of view, it goes very deep. I explain a lot of the things that don't seem right, and it's very deep in psychology. It's really about that book specifically, not just about Alcoholics Anonymous and all that. It's about a man going through, like, trying to figure out who he is and trying to change. You know, you're about my age. You know, we've gone through the way we used to talk and feel and respond to people is very different now, and some people adjust to that very easily, some don't, and this is one of those guys who don't, and trying to figure that out. And you know, and he lives in guilt of everything he's ever done and every mistake he's ever made. Like, it all just eats away at him because of various stuff in his life.
Yeah.
And magic and witches.
Of course. Yeah. Yeah. And then, you know, but like I said, I personally don't know how you got into comic books and then making comics. Just share a little bit about your background.
Yeah. So I need a sip. I've been way too long, haven't had enough caffeine. So I'm from Rochester, New Hampshire, hence Granite State Punk. Granite's from New Hampshire. Right next to Rochester is Dover, New Hampshire. Does that mean anything to you in comics? It's okay.
Not that it doesn't strike a nerve.
Dover is where the Ninja Turtles were from. So that is where Mirage Studios opened up their shop. So Kevin Eastman,
wow.
Peter were right there. They were making their books, doing their stuff. The city even has a manhole cover that's designed for them. So growing up, Ninja Turtles were such a big deal in our world,
wow.
Right? And then when Ninja Turtles started fading, we had The Tick. So The Tick is a New England comic. That's a really big. And then I'm a 90s kid, so we had Spawn. So comics were always a part of my life. I've been very vocal about it. I come from a drug and alcohol family, but my grandmother bought me, because when we were kids, we come home with magazine subscriptions, and they encourage you to buy one, and she ordered me Spider-Man. And since then, every Spider-Man, my whole life, since I was 12 years old. I have every Amazing Spider-Man that's ever came out.
And that means, because I know that's about the exact time I started collecting, that would have been right around the beginning or end of the McFarlane Amazing Spider-Man run into his Spider-Man run, and then on.
Yeah, it's crazy. I do all these interviews and I never remember the number, but it's the one that has Sabretooth appear in it. So it was my first Spider-Man comic.
It's like 3 teens. It's
a
314,
312,
318.
313, something like that.
You
know, that was my first one, and I remember, like, Sabretooth was really cool, and, like, I was like, oh, look at this Spider-Man villain, he's really cool. And then the X-Men come out, and I was like, he's not that, look at this. So I did that, but I also had a love for film. So I really was into Quentin Tarantino, Kevin Smith, you know, things that were very relevant.
Oh, man. Did you say Tarantino and
Smith?
That was it. Same time, late 90s. That's how I got into creativity. Is I wanted to be a filmmaker, actor, director, because Quentin Tarantino's Pulp Fiction, boom. Kevin Smith, Clerks, boom. Right. And me and my buddies would go VCR, camcorder, to editing on VCR to VCR with this audio mixer. And, but yeah, and then of course, I did, you know, the wiser self chose to higher education. And then because of that, now I'm able to make my own comic books with my own budget and not have to take tens of thousands of dollars out on credit cards, which Kevin Smith did. But, but he made it. So anyways,
Yeah, well,
that's so cool that we
was
share
my
that.
plan, right? I moved to Florida from New Hampshire. I saw an ad for Full Sail and Entertainment Weekly because, again, my parents weren't there to like, hey, I know everyone at school keeps telling you, hey, you should go to apply for college. I had the grades to go to colleges. I just never bothered applying, regardless of how many student advisors, teachers, anyone. I was like, but Sam and Mark broke up last period, and I've got to figure out what happens before 8th period. I've got to get involved in this situation. I don't have time to apply for your silly colleges. So when everyone graduated around me and had secondary college plans, I didn't. So I literally drove down to Florida and started film. That was my goal, to get into film.
Wow.
I did that, but right when I was about to graduate, I had a child, so I decided to be a dad instead of that. So I decided to do that and not be film. But while I was doing that, I started going to comic conventions, started doing comics. So I did some early comics in 2005 to 2007. So you'll see some early work from me, like shorts. I was even in Image back then.
Wow. So help me unpack that so I get it. I mean, good for you for choosing your passion early, because I didn't. I kind of skirted around it until I could fully realize it. But you went forward despite the anxiety. You just jumped in your car and came down. So how did you do those early years though? The early aughts.
I just did it, man. Like, I just moved down here. Like, I didn't have any money. I had to have a job. In fact, I couldn't even, go back to Full Sail. I couldn't even afford Full Sail. I had to go to another school. Like, when I got to Full Sail, they were like, oh, you need $40,000 a year and you can't have a job. I was like, that's not going to work. Like, my family doesn't make that kind of money. So I found another college. Little did I know it was an uncredited college at the time. Luckily, it got bought up by UCF, so I have a UCF degree.
Wow.
But that's.
And then how did that go to your first comics though, and then to Image? Because that would have been, again, that was. I mean, being a comic creator, I think is easier than ever, only because we have so many more tools and resources. But back then, that was before the smartphone. So
right.
So there was the internet, but you didn't have the resources like you do now.
Well, yeah, I couldn't have succeeded if I wanted to make comics then. My literal plan, like, I look back on it, I think I always wanted to create comics, but there was no path to make comics. Nobody told me how to make comics. There wasn't a way. The only way I knew how to make comics was Kevin Smith made a movie, and then he could write Daredevil because he made a movie. And literally, because that was always in my plan. I'm going to make a movie so Marvel will talk to me, because I didn't know a path into comics. There wasn't Kickstarter, there wasn't any of that. So what happened is I went to a comic convention and I would buy every independent comic, much like you do when you go to stuff. I bought anyone who I had any interest in and just talked to them. And then I got a 4-page backup here, and then I got another 4-page backup. There was a forums called Digital Webbing. It still exists, but it doesn't do what it does now. But I would be friends with all them, and I would do backups and all that. And then the Image book that I'm in is Negative Burns. Are you familiar with Negative Burns? The old
I know the title. I think wasn't it at a Caliber at one time?
Yeah, it was Caliber. So that's where Alan Moore came from. That's where Brian Michael Bendis came from. Neil Gaiman, all the greats wrote in that. I also wrote in it, but the Image version, and way later in the run.
And it was an anthology, right?
It was an anthology, yeah. It would be about 48 pages, and it would come with a little spine. I don't think I have a copy out here. No, I don't. But yeah, so I wrote, and I was in that, and I did some stuff, and then I literally shelved it all. Like, all my comic books were shelved. I would buy comics in abundance, and, ex-wife, ex-marriage. Then I met a beautiful woman, my lovely wife, and I'm so blessed to have her. You've met her.
Yeah.
We were just talking one day, and I opened up a folder because I had worked on a complete comic book. It was complete. I had 2 issues of a series called Broke Down in 4 Dead Bodies. It was completely done. And I never did anything with it. It just sat in a box. The artist quit because he had a baby. He couldn't do it. And back in those days, like, you're dead in the water. If you cannot switch artists. Now it's far more socially acceptable. But back then, don't even bother putting it out, because if you switch artists, you're done.
And let I mean, it just sounds like you had paper artwork. So you even couldn't. Just it wasn't digital, so you couldn't really manipulate it. I mean, again, this is outside my scope. I'm not an artist, but
Yeah.
but like you said, you're kind of locked in. So now you have this artwork that's unfinished. Maybe you can't move forward. Different art style. Wow.
Yeah, so, but my wife saw it and she's like, it's really stupid that you have a comic. Because I was buying Kickstarter. She's like, it's really stupid that you have two comics here, like two issues of a comic that you've never done anything with, that I paid thousands of dollars for. And I agreed with that. So we made that path. We made that change. I called the original artist. His life had changed. And he was like, I would love to finish this. And we started rocking and rolling. And over the next few years.
That full circle, man.
Yeah, we went full years, and it's now a graphic novel. It's completely done, and and this is showing a rookie writer, because this is a Quentin Tarantino ripoff. It is 100% crime, all that stuff. But it got me back in the door, and since then we just counted. We have published 56 books through a company. I have been in more books than that. I've been in probably 20. But we as a company, me, my wife, and Jerome, our Orange Cone Productions, have put together 56 books.
Wow, that is a huge accomplishment. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Very cool. So, what would Travis Gibb, if he could go back, say, 20 years ago? What would be some advice you would give the younger version of you to help cut back? So I'll say in my Kickstarter, bootstrapped, because I devour information when I learn it. So as I was writing my comic book, The Red Ram, in 2019, I realized I need to learn this craft, even though I've been collecting since the early 90s. I read, 15 different books about it. So now I have all this information. I decided to put it and collect it and bootstrapped. But one thing I learned in my education was how to learn quickly. And so what would you tell yourself to cut the learning curve in creating and writing comic books?
So, unfortunately, I'm older than I'd like to admit. So that's 26-year-old me. I would have been an earlier adapter of Kickstarter. That would be the first thing. That was one of the first things I would learn is how to use Kickstarter, how to monetize it. Especially back then, the early adapters of Kickstarter, the people who are still making books from them, they have huge fan audiences and really have been able to build that. I don't think 26-year-old would have been great for it, because he didn't have the financial stability, right? Because one of the things that hurts Kickstarter is it's really better for people our age who have a stable job, have some money in your bank account, because you're not tempted to use that money you get into Kickstarter. It can literally go what it's for. But I've been poor, right? And had to I'll replace that $500, and then you replace the other $500, and then another $500, and it gets messy. So that'd be the first advice. The second advice is really figure out how to network properly. Networking is really hard in comics. Building community is really hard in comics. And it's all about networking. Every good opportunity I've had, it's not, unfortunate, it's not because, very few of it's been for my talent. It's been because I've networked, I've met the right people like me, people want to see me succeed. It's not that my talent doesn't have weight in those conversations, I'm not saying that at all, but those connections that you make and being able to maintain really matter. Every San Diego Comic Con, I get a call of someone who's talking about me, or is interested in me, or has given my number, because I have that revenue. And I have never gone to a San Diego Comic Con, so it's just making those connections and building.
That's really cool. I think, as you said, it is a small community. Thankfully, both in real life, if you're fortunate enough and able to go to a comic book convention. And then secondly, there is online presence and social media, because even if you do get to meet someone in person, I connected with you on a social media app, because I don't have your personal number, but it is a way you can foster that relationship after meeting in person.
Yeah, absolutely. Two people reach out to me all the time, and I have no problem helping them. And even pros, I reach out to pros periodically. I'm never one of those guys who I ask a simple question and then I leave. I never want to overstay my thing. But if I have a question, I have never had a pro, as long as I'm not like writing a like big long thing, just asking a simple question, has ever been disrespectful to me or has not tried to help me.
Yeah, and I think that's right. And I think what you're in the undertone of what you're mentioning is, and look, we all are fanboys, and we all get excited, and I get, I stutter when I meet one of my favorite artists or writers, and I just kind of unload. But I think what you're saying is be respectful, introduce yourself, and share, but don't. These are very busy professionals, and their time is valuable, so you want to be respectful of that time. I think that's what you're saying.
Yeah. Like it's kind of soft to say this. Like they know, like people have already told them that their work is good, and of course they want to hear how you inspire them and stuff like that. But I've seen people, even me. In fact, I'll even go one step further. I have right now in my Twitter a guy who found me, who was inspired by me, which I love. I have a 6-minute message from him, voice message. But it's not about how great I am. It starts about that way, and then I know about his friend who's a veteran and like this whole life story. I don't know how to respond to that. You know what I'm saying? Like I am interested in you. I want to be your friend, but let's have a slow friendship. Let's not go into. I'm not ready to date you yet, right?
Yeah. Yep. That's it. And just again, it's being mindful of boundaries, and it's just that again in a very sensitive world and times we live in. And again, that's where I think again going to a convention, saying hello, meeting, getting a business card or a way to connect in the future, and just making sure that it's bite-sized amounts. But like you said, those connections are how to get the name out there. Because I always say you can have the best book or movie or comic book, but if no one knows about it, then no one's going to be able to purchase it. And part of that is working with a network of creators, and even if it's just learning about more the craft and the business of comics, right?
100%. And I think that when you're doing, especially indie comics, I guess here's another thing to say to my younger self, which I think is very valid for someone who's starting out. It is okay if Paul, and I'm just using your example, I'm going to change it in a minute. If Paul just wants to make a comic, he just decided one day he wanted to make a comic. He doesn't really read a lot of comics. He's read a few, but he has a story. He wants to see it visually. He knows a movie's too complicated, so he wants to make a comic. That's fine. There's also people who come into comics, they don't really want to make a comic. They want to make a comic so they can prove that it could work to make a movie. So they have no interest in really making a comic. And then there's people like really Paul, when I look in your background, you clearly love comics. You have action figures behind you. Like you have this display. Like it is important to you. You're not here to just skip the stuff. You actually care about the medium and want it to succeed and be invested in it. And all of them are valid in indie comics. And that was the hardest thing that young me could take, because I was like, I love this stuff. This stuff saved my life. I learned right and wrong from comics, I have boxes upon boxes. When I go to interviews, like there's so many people when I go on to comic interviews, where the comic host asks me, hey, what did you read this week? And I respond, and they're like, wow, you're the first person who responded, because most of them are like, well, I don't read comics anymore. Well, you should. You should love this medium. And it took me a long time to not be bitter and angry at those people, to accept that there's no barrier of entry. We need to stop thinking of it like that. There's just level of commitment, to just like anything in life.
Yeah, I love that. A few things I like to follow up on is just, one is, and that's one reason I made Bootstrap, to make your first comic book, because whether it's someone like me or you who were collecting in childhood and they're at a time in their life, whatever age, and they want to create something and it happens to be a comic, great. I have 2 nephews that through the years, because everyone in my family, of course, knows I'm Paul Rashid, the comic book collector. Working in a comic book store in junior high and high school, and going to, everyone knows it. And so my nephews, and of course it's very common for superheroes, especially at that young age, and they're showing me the comics they're creating, and we're just having fun. It's just them making some 3 and 4 and 5 year old drawings, but they're making a comic book and they're having fun with it, and they're learning about telling a story and being creative, and there is no rules in that. And it could just be something you're making for your friends or your family, or because you always wanted to get it out there, and that's great. But then, like you said, there is if you want to do things professionally, and that's when I want to show people to demystify how to make a comic. Just like I have read many books on making film and various video courses, so I know what pre-production is and what a script is, how many people and staff it takes to create the finished product that you and I and billions of people around the world watch a final movie, but they don't know the process into it. Just like comics. I mean, they might know who Stan Lee is and they created their favorite Marvel superhero, but they don't know the process of working with an editor. How do you come up with a script? What does the script look like? And then the editorial process of giving the script to an artist, getting the layouts back, doing corrections, getting the pencils back, going back to the pens, then getting the colors, and then the invisible art of the specifics of the sequential panel storytelling in comics, and the invisible art of dialogue and text boxes or bubbles, balloons. So, anyways, it really runs the gamut. I want to go back to, you said something really interesting. I mean, a comic book or comics that saved your life. What do you mean by that?
So, for me, I come from my parents did a lot of drugs. It was a very bad child situation, and they weren't there to teach me right and wrong. I mean, they were getting arrested for stealing. They were having massive parties. They were doing a lot of really bad things. But comics, I was learning what's good and what's bad from those pages. They were kind of educating me of values and showing that things are complicated, right? A comic versus a story. When you watch a cartoon or whatever, He-Man just beats the bad guy, and it's very simple. But when you read Peter Parker, trying to hey, there's a cost if I save all these people. My family gets neglected and bad things happen. I need to take attention to my trying to find that balance. And as a human being, when I became a parent and having to make those choices, right? I think that's the 100% choice of what is the better choice. Am I selfish? Am I going to be a filmmaker? Am I going to try to be a filmmaker and enforce everything and not be a dad and not be who I needed when I was growing up? Or am I going to stop and be a dad? I really believe that those are from the pages of a comic book. Those are where I learned those values, and that it's more complicated. One of the things about complicated comics, because it's a monthly and it comes out, so they're a lot more complicated than people give them credit for, and complex storytelling and trying to figure out who you are, what you are, and what that means. Those books saved my life because those are what I was paying attention to, instead of the other things that were far more scary out in the living room. So I can avoid
Travis. I thank you for sharing it and some about your personal life. I can, I just know from my work how difficult it could be what you've experienced. But I also like to highlight the positive and the strengths that you have and you've brought to your life and to share with others. And actually, one of my little movements that I'm slowly trying to build out in each comics, like in the Red Ram, I have a psychiatrist, Dr. Ratchet.
I remember.
Not Dr. Rashid. But, and he teaches deep breathing, and I try to weave a few mental health elements into my book. So in addition to it being a great aging vigilante that's tied up into this mental health, I try to weave in some self-help into it. But, same thing for me. I mean, I think we all have those things that resonate with us. And life is complicated, and we all are exposed to various traumas and various forms throughout our lives, but we also need to look at the positive in our lives. And I, for me, movies were very resonant for me and taught me a lot, and just that I could maybe escape into. And so it's cool that for you had your superheroes that taught you some things that you didn't always get in your in real life world. So I think that's really cool.
Well, I think for me, it's more than just superheroes. You know, when he got into Vertigo and you were doing 100 Bullets and Sandman and Why the Last Man, if you are not changed after reading Why the Last Man at youth, now it's probably look at it like, wow, they say some crazy things. But at the time, like Why the Last Man, like really was impactful. And Jinx and Goldfish, like reading those books were conversations, you know, and like had conversations. Like when Brian Michael Bendis was writing that before he got to Spider-Man, I was messaging him. I was emailing him. I actually sent him. I was working at McDonald's and I stole, you know, hash brown when they did the Monopoly things. They had the like things you pull off the hash brown. I stole a whole like they come in a sheet like a card box, and I stole it and I sent it to Brian Michael Bendis. And Brian Michael Bendis knows it till this day. We talk about when I see him. I sent it to him. I have a sketch in one of my sketchbooks of literally him and McDonald's hat because of it. I did it, you know, to just be part of it. And then learning, like, as things change, like, I didn't buy Ultimate Spider-Man. I know people love Ultimate Spider-Man, but for me, that was him selling out. Like, you could be doing these black and white comics and, like, that reality of what that looks like and what that could be and what's the sacrifice of art. And then can you tell Brian Michael Bendis' story and superheroes? And he proved that he could, but... Yeah. All those things, I think, are learning just about sacrifices you got to make in life and changes you got to make in life and what is your goal, and that's achievable, you know, because I never would have thought in a million years that the black and white comic that I was reading, that's super wordy, that's basically trace pictures, that's what Brian Bendis did, could write Ultimate Spider-Man. Like, these are achievable dreams, and I believe that in life. I don't think enough people believe that. You can literally do any job. Obviously... how good you are at it varies, but you can do and accomplish any job. I believe that's possible for anybody on this planet if you just work hard enough. Again, manage expectations, right? You want to make a movie, you can make a movie. It's probably not going to be Star Wars, but you can make a movie.
That's right. No, everything you're saying, everything you just said there really resonates with everything I've learned in my life. So I think we don't realize the power within us. And when I said superheroes, I meant that in two ways, and obviously it's the literal, but and I'm working on this on another comic idea, and that's probably my thing, is I spread myself too thin, so then it takes me a while to realize these, but I'm toying with the idea of how people can realize we actually do have superpowers. It's kind of bizarre, and the older I get, I'm just slowly realizing this, but in anything, just as you said, we can do anything. You have to put your mind to it. It has to be realistic. But if someone has the desire, the burning desire, you can achieve it. And I think through that process to achieve something that, even if it is maybe unrealistic, I mean, Kevin Smith did something that was, I'm sure if you went to 1,000 people in Hollywood, 999 would say, good luck, kid. You're going to fail. But if you truly believe it, you will learn something about yourself that you didn't think was possible. And I think that is a superpower, whatever the story or what you're trying to accomplish.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I agree.
And then, you know, I just wonder, like with Granite State Punk, were there some autobiographical things in there or inspirations that led out? Or is it just... an amalgama of everything you take from pop culture and... No,
Granite State Punk is my most personal book. Obviously, he's not me. He actually has some opinions that aren't me, but it is me ranting and angry. So I wrote that book. My grandmother had passed away, and she had given me a good chunk of money, which was shocking, but she gave me some money, and I wasn't expecting it, and it was a good chunk of money. So it was the first book that I could do that I could literally pick whatever artist I want because I had enough money and I really wanted to choose it. So when I started writing it, it was a completely different story. The original story for Granite State Punk was about this guy who finds out that his parents were murderers and that he's digging in his backyard and he finds a bunch of bones. In fact, there's a program here in Florida. I think you're too far south, but called Monsters in the Morning. It's an Orlando-based radio talk show, and this guy told a story how he digged in someone's backyard and he digged up a box that he thought was a time capsule, brought it to the lady. He had asked his former house, brought it, and the lady got all white, and it was the bones of. It was like the cremation of her husband, and he was like, "Oh shit!" and dropped it and ran. And I was like, "Oh, that's a great story." So
Wow.
the original story was that, and then I wanted to set it in New Hampshire, and New Hampshire was done for me. So both my parents died. One of them died of an overdose. My mom, we didn't get to that part here in the conversation, but my mom got clean over the years. But she also died because of a surgery that went bad. And now my grandmother. So every New Hampshire was just death to me. But I was having a son, and I needed to figure out a way to love New Hampshire again. And that's where Granite State came from. I used a lot of my real life experience, talked about a lot of the real stuff that happened in my life, made fun of and attacked everything about the state that I hate, like all the weird rules and laws, and really talked about that in a punk rock fashion. Got to rant, got it on the page. But through that, I learned to love it. I learned to love the state. And through it, my wife is my editor. She's learned to love the state. She loves Granite State Punk, the comic. She wants to get a tattoo of it. And it's always weird to me. I'm like, you're not from New Hampshire. You're just married to someone from New Hampshire. You can't have this affinity. But she's even grown to that affinity because I've just learned to love because New Hampshire's a weird state. Like, it's live free or die. They have no taxes. But then they have these weird laws, like no seatbelts, like this weird thing of freedom. But they're also super controlling in other aspects. Like, it just all these weird things that don't mesh, which makes it funny. And they pride themselves on all these things that don't make a lot of sense. I wrote about those, and I wrote about the folklore of New Hampshire, and really it was a love letter. And because of that, I'm able to go to the state again, because I didn't want to go there because it was all death. Every time I went there, it was death. And, I shared my pride. Like, who would want to go back to that? But now I love it again, and then I can show my son, who really deserves to know where his dad came from.
Yeah. No, I think that's amazing. Again, thank you for sharing, and sorry for some of your losses. But on the positive note, and that's another thing that I've done, is I created this movement, which again, slow to get off the ground, but I call it Anxiety into Arts. Yeah. And there is a psychological principle that we can transform or transmute a negative state or a negative emotion into something positive through sublimation, it's also called. And I think that Granite State Punk is, you share an amazing journey, a personal journey that you went through, but through creating something, through taking some negative emotions, you transformed this. So now, not only is the state and some of memories are actually positive things, and you get to share that through a story that other people can learn from. So I think that's the power of any creative medium, including comics.
And that's, for me creating comics, and this is not everyone, and I'm not trying to force if there's not something real in it, there's no reason to write it. When I Broke Down in 4 Dead Bodies, which is a great book, but it's really me, like, it's a love letter to Quentin Tarantino. My heart, it's my writing, but it's not my heart. And then all my other stuff since then that I've written, because, that's my first public, real, full issue work, has my heart. And, like, I want my heart on the page. I want you to see a part of my soul, because that's what it should be about. When I read comics and when I get inspired or when something touches me, it's that. And then for Granite State, going back to Granite State Punk for just a second, there's been several cons of people who like, hey man, I was down, I was suicidal. Like, this book made me feel like there was somebody who hears me out there. And I think that's so important in this world, to just be heard, because unlike when I grew up, you and I grew up, we went to high school, right? And then all our friends abandoned us so we could go to college. And we thought they were going to be there forever, and we got a reality check, and we grew up, and that affected us. But that's not reality for people below our generation, millennials, they've had Facebook or some sort of social media their whole life. So they have this connection to people. They feel that they're connected to these bigger people. And they've never lost any friend because they're all on the same thing. But it's not real. It's not real friendship. It's not people, because the people who followed me to college are still my lifelong friends. Those are the people who really matter, right? They're not just the people who like me and send me that message on my birthday, or they're the ones who are like calling me, hey, you're in town, I need to see you. And that's what matters. And I think reality is going away. And even further now, we've got AI. People are talking to AI, and they're getting, AI is trained to tell them what they want, or trained to AI wants more engagement. So you're talking to it, and it's going to engage in a way that you like, and that's not you. I need my wife to occasionally tell me, hey, you were wrong, you should apologize, or I know your heart, that's not you, like you said things, you did something, that's not your heart. And then I can rebalance myself. We need people in our life to rebalance us, to make us better people, right? And then I do that for my wife and my kids. This is how the world's supposed to work, and we're losing that as social media and AI is kind of taking that away.
Yeah. Well, to go back to your point, though, it's that I think that in some ways we are more lonely than ever in any generation, even though it's counterintuitive because we're more connected than ever virtually. But
Right.
there's something about connecting, even if it's through a story. Your story connected and resonated with others who felt alone, and they didn't feel alone. And that I would go back to. That's another way to really save someone. So I think that's really cool that you've had those personal experiences of people giving feedback that story and others have resonated with you.
You want my community building, because I built community. Do you want to jump into that? What questions?
Yeah, let's talk about that, because I know that you're a big advocate for other creators. I know you do a Discord. Now, this is, although I know some technology, I don't know all of it, and although you have invited me graciously, getting on through this intermediary is something I don't know. Tell us more about how you engage and build your community.
So, it's probably a reflection of my brokenness that we've talked here. Like, I don't see my value a lot of times, and my value growing up was what I could do. For my parents, it was hide or clean up the house after the party, or those are the things that resonated with value. So there's a broken, and this is just my brokenness. Everybody has a brokenness. This just happens to be mine. But I've always used that as a positive. That brokenness in me, that I can never feel that I'm enough. It allows me this ability to see other people who may not be seen. And it's important to me in anything I do. This is anything. It's not just comics. It's just comics is the thing that you see me a lot in. Is I need to build a community around it, make sure everybody's seen and everybody has a spot at the table. I want everyone to eat. You're welcome at my table. I'm religious, I'm a Christian, and one of the most powerful things in the world to me, and my favorite disciple, is Judas, because Jesus even welcomed the guy who's going to betray him to his table. Judas, you're welcome at my table. This guy's going to betray you, you're welcome at my table. That doesn't dismiss you. So I try to build a community, and that community, I help them, they help me, I help them we do a lot of anthologies together. So I run 2 major anthologies a year. One is Cthulhu Invades, so we have the Cthulhu Invades series. This is Cthulhu Invades Oz. We're currently live at Cthulhu Invades Fairy Tales. I also do Holiday Spirits. So one of the aspects is doing that. The other one is helping people get gigs, work. It's a way easier if you have a network of connected people to do that. I also do a show, but it's not a normal show. You're kind of doing a podcast thing. I don't do that. When I'm live on a Thursday, I'm I'm going to go live, and I'm going to invite all of you then, and I'm going to get you backers. Literally, I'm going to get you money. I'm going to use my fans to give you money, because I believe that we sometimes need to stick our necks out for people. So that is something that's actively in my blood. It's active in Orange Cone's blood. My wife is a very big proponent. We do signings. We do all the things we do to help grow each other's business, because art is lonely. And a lot of people who do art have very similar beliefs to me, as they're not seen, or there's something that they feel if they could just get it out, and maybe they don't even know how to say it yet, but they're trying. So they try this book or this book to try to say something, and I'm here to let them know that they're heard, and I want them to be part of it, and I'm gonna try to make them better. And on the negative, because of my because I want to be fully transparent here, because of my rough edge, I'm also the guy who you'll see call people out if I feel they do wrong in the community.
Well, that's a bit of your moral compass. So that's great, and to look out for other individuals, especially who are early creators and may not realize that someone's taking advantage of them or something. So I think that's cool. I think that it's great that you mentioned that I'm going to say creating anything can be lonely endeavors. The arts can be very lonely. I'm a writer, so most of my writing is done with me and a computer or me and a paper and pencil. If you're an artist, obviously you're spending hours and hours at the the artist's desk, whatever you're if you're using digital or paper and ink, because it is a lonely endeavor. And then, probably the two times I'm most social in comics is if I'm going to a show, and then you really get to be a part of that community and see other like-minded individuals that in the normal day-to-day life you don't always see. It is a
Right.
It is a hyper reality, but at least you get that socialization and meet with others. And then the other times I'm social with others is doing a podcast like this with you, or like you said, if you're on a Facebook Live. So I think that's a good thing to realize that. And again, probably there's that old saying, an idle mind is the devil's playground. So that maybe during those lonely times our mind can go to dark places, and you take a negative thought and it just spirals out. So I think it's great that you are out there to help people stop and then give them something positive to run with. So I think that's really cool.
Yeah, it's a great community. Like my Discord community is a very great community. It's 400 members plus. We only invite 20 people a month so that they can vibe. But it's also it's really good because there's people at different stages. There's people who are working for Mad Cave and low level Marvel and DC, and there's people who are just starting out. We all get to interact, and then we also harass each other, but harassment in a good way. Like there's a guy who doesn't go to comic stores. I'm a very big proponent on comic stores. He goes to the library, and he isn't any more or less valid than I am. And we have debates about this and the quality of both. And I think that that's important. And then there's a couple people who are kind of negative. They're on the down thing. Well, this didn't work or this didn't work. And there's people who are on the positive. And I think all information is good information, whether it's good or bad, right? Like, hey, that may not work because this didn't happen. And that advice prevent you from making a mistake that you weren't able to do. That's great. Someone to tell you, hey, no, try that new thing. That's going to work out really good, Or just literally a connection. Hey, I would like a table at MegaCon. Do you know the guy? Yeah, here's his email. Like just simple things like that. Those all matter, and those just help you get one step closer. And it's again not intrusive in someone's email, like trying to figure out, trying to be their best friend. This is a community where you're open to do that and talk to other people. And a lot of times it's Kickstarter. Like a lot of the people don't understand, and I'm sure yourself. Because you did Red Ram and what was your Seinfeld one called? I forgot the name of it.
Yeah, Defrosted.
You look at yours and then you look at somebody else's, and you cannot understand how they may have more money than you or you have more money than me. And sometimes it's literally a simple thing. There was a guy the other day. He's on his 5th issue of a comic book, and he's like, "It is dying. I'm not making any money." And we made him money on issue 4, but he didn't follow some simple advice. And all the advice it's very simple. He's selling issue 5. He was not selling the series. He was selling the latest issue. And that's just not the way Kickstarter works. They want to invest in the whole thing. They don't want to invest in a series. He made those changes, and he saw some positive growth. And that's what we're there for, is doing that. And even myself, who's done this for a long time, I get lazy and I miss a thing. And I'm like, why is this not working? And one of the persons, hey, you skipped that thing that you always do because you didn't think it was important.
I don't think it's laziness. I think that, and this is hard because you have the craft of comics is art,
right?
But to be successful, it has to be a business. Right. And one of the aspects of the business is learning the platform. And if you're going to sell, the easiest way that is an established platform is the Kickstarter platform. But, you know, so the first thing I ever kickstarted was I made this documentary film, The Comic Book Collector. I worked with a NYU Tisch Film School director from my home state. We collaborated. I paid him out of pocket. It was great. Lessons learned. But I go to kickstart it. I have no idea what I'm doing. I just put it on there, and it doesn't fund. Imagine that. What do? Well, I find everything I can on Kickstarting. I find Comics Launch by Tyler. And this was, 2000 and probably 2020, whatever. And thank goodness he had hundreds of episodes. I started at episode 1, and I just devoured, and I learned, and we put together the playbook. And then, of course, now he put together...
He actually has the playbook, right? Yeah.
The planner. So there are tools and resources to learn this and a checklist to go by. And again, I think you and I are at a point where I think that if you do the basics, you get it. But there's so much. There's so much to learn and do. And so it's one of those. So again, maybe what I'm going to do with Red Ram 2, which is already built out, but I need to finish Bootstrap before I launch Red Ram 2. But it's not Red Ram 2; it's Red Ram 1 through 2, and then it's going to be 1 through 3 and 1 through 4, which is the complete mini series. So, what would be your top 2 or 3 things you see that either early people on Kickstarter mess up, or what are the simple tricks that are the best way to Kickstarter success for comic books?
All right. So the first thing is exactly what you said. You know, you're selling, when you go to, a lot of people fail on issue 2 and they don't understand why. So ones are really easy. Easy is a relative term.
Easier.
But your friends and family are going to invest in it. They're going to be excited for you. At issue 2, they don't care. They're not as excited. They never read the first one. They had no intention of reading the first one. They just like you, and that's okay. That's okay. But now, here's where the rubber meets the road. Now it's time to make fans. So how do we make fans? How do we build that? So hopefully, you have, the first advice is talk about it before it launches. A lot of people aren't talking about it. They go into their holes, and then they launch. Talk about it beforehand. Let people be involved. The more people are involved, the more they're invested in it. If they're seeing the behind the scenes, hey, we just got another cover, and hey, we got another page. Show them. Don't worry about spoilers. Nobody's trying to steal your thing, man. They can make it. Like, it's no big deal. So show it as you go. Second, one of the things that comic fans who become creators do, is we and especially if we have a little bit of money, we'll go to artists that we liked. Oh, I really loved your Green Lantern run. Can you draw me a cover? Let's use who am I thinking? Trying to figure out. It's hard. There's so many people. I'm trying to use someone who's realistic. Phil Hester. Phil Hester's good. Loved your Green Arrow run. Can you get a cover? You could absolutely get a cover for Phil Hester. It's actually very affordable. It's not even that expensive. But Phil Hester is doing a Marvel or DC book, and that's what he's working on. That's what he's promoting. However, you can find a guy who's much cheaper, who does very, very good art, who's hustling, who wants to do this as much as you. That guy's going to be talking about your book over and over again. And yes, it's nice to have that Phil Hester art. Of course I want beautiful Phil Hester art in my book. But that other guy's going to hustle, and he's going to get you to that next level. You're going to start acquiring fans because he has fans. It's a lot easier to get that guy's fans than it is to get Phil Hester's fans. Because you know what? Phil Hester has another book that you already know you like, right? You already know you're going to like Green Arrow. You already know you're going to like DC versus Zombies or whatever. You already invested into Phil Hester. You're invested in the IP already as well, so you're good. So finding these guys who can help level you up, not breaking the bank, and they're going to help you promote, because that's the hardest part of it's you. And a lot of us, I don't know about you, but I use a lot of overseas guys. They can't help me. Them promoting the book can maybe sell a couple of digitals, but they're normally from countries that don't have the extra expendable income for comics, so they're not going to be able to help you. So those are the two big things. Always get a variant cover, because the other mistake that people do is they think about what they would buy. Well, because when I go to the comic store, I don't buy variant covers, or very rarely do I buy a variant cover. But I'm not going to buy the 1 in 10 or 1 in 25 for the 25 increase. That's not me. Cover A guy, whatever the case would be. But those people are there, and those people are on Kickstarter. So make stuff for them as well. So make stuff not just for what you would buy. Think about what other people would buy. And then the last one is Kickstarter. Look at what other people are pricing and price it there. I think a lot of people go, oh, I'm going to go cheaper. I'll get more people. That's not necessarily the way it works. There's a kind of a standard of pricing that you can go a little bit cheaper or a little bit up, but try to stay in the same range as everybody else, because that is what the market for that is. So stick in that and don't lose money, because so many people have done the cheap route. One thing happens, like a tariff or something like that, and now they can't afford their book.
Yeah, no, I think those are all great things. One, share your idea early in the process. Show the behind. Hey, you and I remember DVDs. I'm sure you loved it as much as I did. And show the behind the scenes. Show some sketches. Show some writing. I even copywrote Red Ram, so I shared that as, hey, milestone. It's real now. But no one's gonna steal it. We're afraid that someone's gonna take our baby. But ideas are a dime a dozen. But it's your idea, so share it so that you can build excitement, and then so that when you kickstart it, people know what it is, and they're invested in you, and they want to buy it. So it's building your fan base through sharing. It is, yes, you have to be realistic, and if it's your first book and you're not doing the artwork and you're going to be paying someone, just know that we have, through the internet, you can reach anyone around the globe, and there are different cost of living for each country, so you can to find someone in the United States at a daily page rate is going to be different than someone in another country, but it's still going to help them in their ability to make that art for you, and they're going to be happy to do it, and it might save you some money, and then so I think those are some great points, and then the price point, because we are not Marvel and DC. And even them, I remember, we were collecting when they were 75 cents and $1 a book. Now an average big two is the $4.99, $5 book. But Kickstarter, my Red Ram #1 only has 50 copies, and I can't do offset printing yet, so it's a digital print, and it cost me $3 and change, and then there's shipping, and then there's the the packaging and the bag and the board, and what I paid my team. So anyways, it is more of a boutique comic, and some people love, and there's a great community that is growing, it seems, every year on Kickstarter, to pay that. I think the average price, Tyler did a great breakdown about a year or two ago, that the average book selling on Kickstarter is between $15 and $18, and when you add in inflation, which I'm pretty sure since 1990 to today, the dollar is about half as valuable, or you can buy, it has half the purchasing price, so it's really deflated by half. So even though costs are higher, and that's where you again bring those value adds, and as creators we get cool things. You can add in a metal cover, you can add in a plate, something that I don't have a Marvel plate, but I got yours.
You couldn't even get a Marvel plate if you wanted, so like that stuff. Well, one of the things I want to say too, when we talk about foreign artists, you're paying for it either way, right? So I may pay less, but I'm going to have to do more of the work to market because I paid for a foreign artist. Where I could pay more and get an American artist, and they may be able to help me promote. So you're paying for it either way. It's the same amount. It's just where are you willing to put that sweat equity,
Yeah. And let me just as we come up to closing, but I still want to hit up a few more ideas before we wrap up. So we talked about kickstarting tips, and I know we kind of talked about asking or telling your younger self some things. But if someone just went up to MegaCon and went to you, oh my gosh, you have all these comic books, I want to make one. Again, maybe what would be the one or two things where you could tell people to start making a comic book, or how to start making their own comic book?
First, I would encourage someone to try to get into an anthology, see if they like it. Try to do a 4 or 5 pager first. I would. There's a lot of opportunities for anthologies. The other thing that anthologies help a new creator is, in fact, we'll even use you as an example, Paul, just because I'm farther along than you. I know you've been doing it for a bit. if you and I were sitting next to each other at a table, I have tons of trades, you have a bunch of floppies. I am going to have a better chance of success because my ticket item is higher. So if you can do an anthology or two and you have a couple of copies of that on their table, when you have those big buyers who will buy everything at your table, those will help you offset and help you be able to achieve it, because comic tables are not cheap. They go from anywhere from $150 to $500. Like, they are not cheap to table.
Well, in MegaCon, I bet a MegaCon is probably $1,000 for a weekend for a 6-footer.
No, it's around 600, but yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
But still, and again, and that's just one of the costs, though. I mean, again, I've still never tabled at a con. I'm still building out my books, but eventually I'd love to. And for me, it's great in South Florida. We have so many one-day shows,
Yes.
which if you have a one-day show, that's where I want to cut my teeth. And maybe one day I'll be able to do one of the big cons and make it. But I mean, $600 for a table, not a lot. Again, include on top of the cost of the book. I mean, it's
Hotel,
expensive.
food, travel,
Hotel.
Yeah, and imagine
Everything.
if you want to bring your book somewhere else, like out of Florida. Like, if we can drive to it, it's not a big deal. But if I have to fly my stuff to New Hampshire or San Diego Comic Con, like the odds of me making money on a $5 book, it's very slim, right?
Yeah,
Right,
yeah.
as we go. So
Yeah.
that's the first thing I would advise them. The second is be part of the community. Like,
Yeah,
find
love it.
the
And I
community.
just
It
go
doesn't
back to
have be
the
my
end.
community. Find a community, because
Yeah.
making comics is a lot easier with friends.
Yeah, I love it. Better together is what I say, and I love the idea of the anthology, because two things, and you and I know from either making film or a short story. If you're an artist, you're gonna show your talent of being a sequential artist, because that's so important. When I'm looking for a potential artist, the first thing, I don't care about a splash page, I don't care about a cover. Show me some sequential pages so I know that you have the continuity to tell a visual story. And two, if you're a writer, it's very difficult to write a short story. Some people might think it's easy. A shorter story is easier because it's shorter. Not necessarily. Every word, every bubble of dialogue, every art panel is so important, because if it doesn't move the story forward, it's gonna be a detriment to your story. So I think those are some great ideas about starting. And then lastly, you did talk a little bit about the marketing. You said, depending on your team, hopefully you have someone that is going to love the project as much as you and share it as well. But, and obviously for me, my biggest outreach needs to be posting on social media, but I feel at times that I'm shouting into the void. What advice can you give me on spreading the word of, say, a Kickstarter?
Do you have a Substack?
This is Comics Magic is a Substack that me and my artist are doing, and we are sharing about a tip a day, as well as some of the behind the scenes. And I'm trying to add value that as long as someone joins the Comics Magic Substack, which is a free subscription, that's kind of where I put these podcasts, so that people who want to learn can learn for free.
Yeah, I mean, Substack is really the key right now. It's kind of a social media, it's kind of an email list, both at the same time, which is really good. It allows you to build a fan base, and what's great about it is people organically find you. So about every day I get one or two people who find me. They found an old article that I wrote to be part of that, and that's really helps you get ahead and get you part of the community. You can also ask to be recommended by a friend. If you know a Kickstarter, another creator who think there's a great fit for you, they can recommend you. For instance, Bad Bug Media by Mike Tenner does a ton of books, way bigger than I, but he recommends me as one of the people. So when someone subscribes to him, it's recommended, and I get a lot of subscriptions just from him. And even though our books can be farther from each other, he does a lot of not safe for work stuff, not stuff that I do. But it allows people to come in and follow me and grow that base. And as a writer, that's what I need, right? I need some place to write things and be able to talk about it. So I use it, and what I do is a 75-25 approach. So 75 of it is tips and behind the scenes on what I'm doing, and only 25% of it's selling. And that's only when I do a Kickstarter. I'll do a post. I'm going to do a post today because we're at the last end of our Kickstarter. I'll do a 7-day post, and then I'll try to do a sale on the website. But the majority of the stuff is engaging, communicating, talking to them, not claiming I'm an expert, but talking, getting personal like we did today about the industry, about what I'm going through, about how I view my position in it. Because I think people want to hear that stuff. People are sick of, you go to YouTube, top 10 tips for indie creators. Hey, do you want to be at the top of the algorithms? Here's how you do it. People are kind of sick of that. So you've got to be real, be intimate. And if you're a storyteller and you're trying to build fans, they have to be fans of you kind of before the book. And I don't like that. I don't like that. And that's not the way I viewed the world. But then when I thought about it, that's just the way it is. I don't think I think Stephen King. When I think of Scream, and again, this is because I'm a film guy, I think Kevin Williamson. And then I think of Dawson's Creek. I think of the guy behind these things that I love. The only exception of that is probably Star Wars, even though I know George Lucas. But
it's still no. That's so fascinating because, again, we think Clerks, we think Kevin Smith. So, and again, that we all want our own privacy. And today, as you had mentioned, those lines are more blurred than ever. And again, it kind of turned me off. And honestly, I'm a very private person, and my author journey started when I wrote Recovery Revolution, and you have to resonate. You do have. We learn through stories. That's what Joseph Campbell taught us through the hero's journey, and that's why George Lucas used it as a model for Luke Skywalker in the archetypal story. But this all goes back to oral tradition, going back centuries and millennia ago, where humans like us were sitting around a campfire, entertaining and learning through the story. But you have to do a story. And so I shared in my book, which I released in 2017, about having a panic attack. And believe me, I wrestled with, do I even share this? But I felt it had to be a genuine thing that I have had a panic attack, and there is a way out of anxiety and crippling panic. And that's all I talk about myself. And the rest of the book is teaching you or the reader how they can overcome mental health issues or stress without medication. So, but all that saying that it is, especially for creators today, it's oddly personal too. And again, you and I love Jim Lee's artwork and Todd McFarlane's artwork. So and the examples you give, and we love the Quentin Tarantino films and his style. It does come back to the individual. So you have to share, and you have to get your message out. So I think that's a hard reality about it. But you kind of unlock something in my brain. I'm still kind of processing.
Yeah. The term struggling artist, people use it as like a negative, but it's kind of a mentality, right? And then art for me, one of the biggest influences in my life is the musical Rent, right? It's about, a musician and a playwright and a filmmaker who just want to put art into the world. That's all they do. And then they have Maureen, who also wants to put art, and they all they have different ways of doing it. And some of them are not self-reflective, some of them are too self-reflective. It's about telling the story of this bohemian lifestyle. And we as people view that. Look at Moulin Rouge. There is something about an artist that we want to know personally their struggles. It's just reality. So if you want to do this and you want to be good at it, you have to be vulnerable and put that on a plate. If you've ever researched, if you're a horror movie fan, look at how many horror movie writers, it's the majority of them are gay. And they didn't come out until later in life, and it was part of their struggle, of their fear of people around them.
Wow.
Child's Play, being a great example, Kevin Williamson being as well for Scream. Of these people who have all these things inside of them, and they didn't write that. If you watch Chucky or you watch Scream, you're definitely not going to think that the guy who wrote that is gay, but it's something that they were throwing through the page. I think sharing that stuff, sharing that intimacy and vulnerability is okay. What I do would caution, though, is if that's all you are and that becomes your identity, that's where it becomes a problem, and nobody wants that, right? Like,
Yeah.
I'm too anxious, I can't do that. I'm too anxious, I can't do. No, people want to see you going to that next level, overcoming. If you're not overcoming stuff, try to keep that stuff. I'm not saying keep it in, obviously, share, whatever you need to do, but there's a balance of that when you're talking about those things,
Yeah.
especially you talked about anxiety and panic attack. I didn't have any of those till my parents died. It just was randomly. I went through so much crap growing up, things that should have broken me, stuff that I haven't even shared here, from molestation to all sorts of stuff. Those didn't break me. One of my parents dying, like, I'm all of a sudden in a Walmart going, I need to leave this Walmart. Like, it's such a different world, and not everyone understands
Yeah.
it, not and stuff. But how do we use those? Put that in our book, and then show that we can overcome it, and show that we have a voice.
Yeah.
Because your voice matters, and only you can do your voice. If you're a writer, only you can do that voice.
Right.
Only you. So we need you to do that, because nobody else can do it.
That's right. We need to bring our independent voice into the world. So many things. A great way to wrap things up in a minute is that it is your voice. No one can steal your idea because it's in your voice. So share it. I think that you said the word broken. I'm not going to say broken. I'm going to say there's a void. I believe that there's a void in all of us, for me it's a spiritual thing. I think that to incarnate in this physical world, we are so somehow had to give up something to incarnate, to live in this amazing world where we really need to remember that we are creators. We can create. We came here to create. That's what you and I are doing. And I think that some of that desire comes out of that void, and through that void and the traumas that we live through helps inform those stories that we share, which then can help someone else. So I think that's a beautiful.
I'm going to push back. All right. I believe, here's my belief, and it's very similar, but I believe there's a core brokenness in everybody who exists in this planet. There's a core brokenness. Me personally, I believe that brokenness is only healed by God eventually. I don't even believe it's on this planet. I don't even believe that. I think that's why you need to continue to pursue Him or a higher power or something. That brokenness cannot be healed. It can be quelled. It can be controlled. It can be all that. And then that brokenness is part of who you are, but it doesn't define you, and it makes you. That brokenness is what attracts and retracts people from you. My vulnerability and that brokenness is something that, though is an attraction to my wife, and something that pushes her away. Right? She sees that quality of me and that love for people that I have because of my stuff, and she also goes, "Why can't you see that in other people?" And it's trying to find that balance, and it's the world, the universe telling you, I love that brokenness in you. Let's figure out how to use that brokenness to go to that next level, to be better, to transform everything we need to do. Because that brokenness can change the world with the right voice and the right person behind it.
I will echo your sentiments. And again, I believe that
People
what
don't
we
like the word
feed
broken.
grows. Well, what we feed grows. You can feed the negative and feed the positive. We all experience positive and negative in this dualistic world we live in. And I'm just saying is, bad things happen. Let's not fuel it, and let's fuel the good. And you have a way to find that in others and highlight the positive so they can get out of that mindset and grow it. And then I'm going to share, and I forget the term, but I just want to share this with you. I don't know if you've heard this. In Japanese, they have this thing where they take ceramics and they break them like a bowl. But then they put it back together and they glue it, and in the cracks, they fill it with gold. And the restored ceramic is even more beautiful after it's been broken.
Yeah, I've heard of that. There is a term for that. I don't know what it's called, but yeah, you're right.
Yeah. So where would be a great place for people who would want to learn more about you, your comics, Orange Cone Productions, and the like?
Yeah, orangeconeproductions.com is great if you want to buy any of the books, learn about anything we talked about. We are also live for the next... we have late pledges, so even if you hear this later, Cthulhu Invades, if you want to be part of anthologies, 22 creators, unique voices, showing what happens when Cthulhu invades fairy tales. So hopefully you know who Cthulhu is. And then travisgibb.substack. That's where I do my most updates. And we talk about, I give you tips, I give you my vulnerabilities, and I show you the cool stuff that we're working on Orange Cone.
I love it. And then just to end, I noticed, so like I said, you mentioned my defrosted, and actually I made up some ash cans at the recent con. I gave some out. So that's my the Seinfeld parody. I still love it, even though that one did not catch on initially, but more to come. I noticed you got Dunder Mifflin. So my favorite 90s sitcom, I think the pinnacle of sitcoms, was Seinfeld. And then, of course, I believe that, in the 2000s, the docu series Office was my other favorite. I'm just curious, tell me more about why you're wearing the Dunder Mifflin shirt.
So my wife, it's actually more my family that's into The Office. I like The Office, but it is literally playing on a TV at all times in my house. So my daughter's watching it, or my wife's watching it, or my son's watching it. They're all watching it. My son's even 5. Like, he doesn't even know what's going on, but he likes the pooping on the carpet episode. He watches that one a lot. A 5-year-old. But it really resonates with my family. They really like it, and it's better. Like my favorite sitcoms are like How I Met Your Mother. I was a big fan of that. Dawson's Creek was a big fan of mine with kids. It's not really when I was a kid, but not something you'd really watch on repeat. So we do have a affinity, but it's more my family. My wife got this in a shirt. I like the ones with the little sleeves sometimes. I do enjoy it. I do enjoy Jim, and I do like the analyzing whether or not Jim was making fun of an autistic man with Dwight, or whether or not Dwight was bullying him. It's unknown. But it's crazy.
That's
but
good.
I'm excited about the paper that's coming out. The sequel that they're doing. And that guy is so talented. Like, if you watch The Good Place, I can't think of his name right now, the creator of The Office, but Michael Schur? Is that it? That doesn't sound
Dervais, the British guy or the American
No,
creator?
the writer of The Office.
Oh, okay, I'm not sure. But I'll just say that, I'll just say that as talented an actor of Stephen Carell is, he was the best character he's ever been is Michael Scott. I mean, hands down, that's what does it for me.
Well, and what I love about that particular show, as you watch it, as it grew, and Seinfeld has a lot of this too, because I've watched a lot of Seinfeld.
Oh yeah,
my wife
it had a whole growth arc. Seinfeld.
Yeah, my wife's a huge Larry David, so she's always watching that on HBO. Is the things where you see them do something and then you see why they're good at it, right? Where the episodes where Michael Scott will like randomly get a sale or show how good he is at this. Like he is all the things that he is, but there's certain skills that he has, and I love that because that's people, man. There's so many people. You're like, how do you survive in the day to day? And then you see the skill that they have. That just like, how can you just do that? And those are the parts of those things that I love. Those little bit of brilliances,
Yeah, love it, man. Well, listen, thank you so much. Thank you for your time, and more to come. And hope to see you at a con soon.
I'm at them a lot, so.
Awesome, man. Thank you.